Welcome to the Puget Sound Underground Podcast. We are very excited to be here with Steve Lynch today, Air Force veteran, employment expert, and overall jobs specialist. Steve, how are you this morning?
Doing well. Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's a wonderful, amazing opportunity.
And we're really glad to have you here, man. I'm super intrigued by your ideologies and just how you're just kicking ass in what you're doing right now in the job world. Obviously, we're going to be diving a lot into that today. Tell me, let's start at the very beginning.
Absolutely.
Right? Let's start with the origin story. I always like to hear these, how people came up and, what kind of life they lived before the success that they've had here. So let's start at the very beginning. Where were you born?
I was born actually at Lawton, Oklahoma at Fort Sill. My dad was in the Army.
Yep.
I come from obviously a long lineage. My grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. I mean, we have people that have served in all branches for the United States military throughout time.
Yeah.
And, growing up as a kid, I've had a lot of experiences. I've been the military brat. I've been the veteran. I've been, at one point in my life, was the mil spouse. I don't really go there, but I've seen all these different levels, right? And growing up, it was really, what I feel anyways, pretty basic on, when you look at the external shell. My parents are still together, going strong.
Nice.
Which is extremely
rare.
Rare but pleasing to see.
Yeah.
I've been to weddings with them where, they take the couples and they put them on the floor and then they let the last couple still dance at the end. And it's been magical to see that still happen.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
But really when I start breaking the shell apart and going deeper into it, I realized that there were some things throughout my life that have become different, over time, obviously, like all of us. But what I really am good at is being self-aware of what my environment is and the changes around culture and the people that I engage with, my family, the values.
Yeah.
And that stems from my childhood. Growing up, I have a younger brother, 3 years younger. He is an amazing professional. He's very dedicated and hardworking. My family, we worked. I mean, we did. We did other things like, of course, my brother and I, we got in some trouble.
Sure.
And,
There's always that.
We're really family oriented. We were outdoors a lot. We were just experiencing life. Education for me. I think that I had a really good foundation with that and a lot of opportunities. School, compared to what I do now and things that I've been through, my learning style is a little bit different. So the classroom really wasn't the best fit for me necessarily.
Totally.
But my mentality of constantly learning off of others and moving through. But growing up, we witnessed some hard times as well. I know what it's like. My dad worked for Boeing when we were young, which, is a huge, employment giant in this region and worldwide, obviously.
Yeah.
He was a machinist, and my mom we had the luxury of being stay-at-home.
Yeah.
We went to a good school and a good upbringing. But my dad also went through strikes and layoffs. And I know what those hard times look like.
Yeah.
So where we look at different populations and stuff where some people are very fortunate and they roll into some really good times. And others, they deal with some misfortune. What I've realized through life is it doesn't matter where you come from. It's how you are able to adapt to that. So where certain individuals think growing up they had it rough or hard, I had it rough and hard too.
Yeah.
My brother had it rough and hard too. I know you had it rough and hard too.
Yeah.
But it's how we perceive that, and it's really just our perspective moving forward and what we're going to allow the influence around us to do. So that's really the upbringing on that.
It's a hard thing to deal with at a younger age, though.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously having wider perspectives makes a big impact on that. You meet these people who, from birth, they traveled the world and saw different cultures and saw all kinds of different things. You find they are a lot more apt to adapt.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And to say, hey, this is happening, but we're just gonna drive on, right?
Absolutely.
And of course, in the military, we've got the embrace the suck mentality.
Yeah.
It's, hey, this sucks, but we're just gonna push.
Yep.
Where do you feel that perspective really started to make a difference for you? Like, where did you see the wheels, that traction really start to pick up where you started to feel in control of what was going on? Did that happen young?
Yeah, it happened rather young. I understood that, coming back together, we were able to develop a lot of resiliency with the family. And I don't really know what was the moment, right?
Sure,
and I don't know the exact formula. But maybe my family being so military centric with that background, with that embrace the suck and coming together mentality, because what we're taught is that resilience piece. And at the end of the day, we're coming together for a cause.
That's right.
And we understand that everybody has a background and, we're working towards a solution, which I think is really what sparked me moving forward in my life of looking at different entities of being hungry to be a part of something bigger than myself.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's really what drove it home for me. And then, pardon me, but moving forward, my family's always been there. And even to this day, talking about being on this podcast and some of the other projects that I've been involved with are coming up. They're extremely excited, but
that's awesome.
I can feel, because of the awareness and because of the humbleness, I can feel how proud everybody is of me and that support. And it's going to pay off in the long run for them as well.
No question. Yeah, no question. What were you like as a kid? Were you into sports? Did you have hobbies?
Absolutely. So
projects?
Yeah. So young as a kid, it was the typical street basketball. It was baseball in the cul-de-sac. It was hide and go seek at night. Growing up, and my family, once again, opened up the opportunities for me to be involved, for my brother and I both to be in sports.
Nice.
And understand very young and early about that camaraderie, understand very young and very early, which I think is important now, about, you're not always going to win.
Right.
And
you mean there's not an 8th place trophy?
There is.
There is. That's the problem.
There is, but, Wait, I mean,
we don't need to get into that. But
but to understand, but the thing is it wasn't just like fighting to be first. My father and my mother and my brother, we all came together, and other influences came into my life where it wasn't about winning, but it was about, if you lose or you don't achieve that goal, what do you need to emphasize on now to move forward?
Yeah, totally.
And I think that, if you're not going to get it the first time, you're going to get it the second time, and that creates that hunger inside of me, and that's why it's never going to stop.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that school, the formal education system was not really a good fit for you. I feel the same, and I know a lot of other people feel the same, especially when we start talking about college. Yeah. But I think even at a young age, especially now, I think it was less so when we were going through. But now everything's about the test, right? And it's not really about real life, and people aren't really being prepared. What was your alternative, right? I mean, obviously you still had to go through it. Where did you get that outlet that you needed to move forward?
I think it was just through life experience and work, curiosity, and that's something that I developed very young, and it still is very predominant today. Is understanding the mechanics behind the machines and the pieces that move in life that make things work versus the one opinion or the one metric or the one thing that we need to work and emphasize on today. It's just a cross divide of opinion. And like you said, and I agree, we've seemed to have found ourselves as an academic society moving into a direction of, well, what does the overall say? Maybe it's produced by an algorithm, maybe it's some study out there, maybe it's who knows what it is, right? But the thing is a lot of the value is taken out of that. And being a father, for me, I'm experiencing that now with my daughter in first grade.
Yep.
And even in the 2 years or 2.5 years, I guess you would say, prior to this, we've been dealing with this where, they won't obviously outright come out and say it, but you kind of get that sense in the public school system that, it's, well, what is the state standard? Right. What are the standards? And so, I'm running into educators not just within her school, but just talking in general where they have an idea of where they would like to go or how they would like to teach. Yeah. But they're really restricted. And the problem is what they're doing works because they can conform very easily and adapt to what the standards may be for the state. Yeah. But it still lacks that creativity. So when we go back to like my childhood of when I was in school, there was a shift, unfortunately. Yeah. I don't think that school forever was like not my jam.
No. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But there was a point where it turned. And it could have been when I went, because I started school in the Puyallup School District. Yep. And then I moved over into the Bethel School District. Yeah. And I'm not saying like one is better than the other by any means because I made it, right? Sure. But the thing is the styles were a little bit different, but then you look at the other things that were going on in that time that I've really reflected on. And I'm not bitter about it, but I think about how that's changed and not so much of digging against the grain to get back to that, but where do we need to shift in the future to try to find that same type of mentality to teach our kids?
Well, and there's also a big issue. I think and there are a lot of issues, I think, but one of the biggest ones is the whole system. The whole education system is still predicated on memorization.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's kind of an issue because memorization is not what education takes anymore. We have information at our fingertips like we've never had before.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's, when you have a systemic problem in an organization or an idea like education, I think this needs to start from the very top, and it needs to start from the deep core. Like, I feel like we need to treat education like a startup.
Absolutely. Right? And the beauty is you can keep looking at that. So when I look at the shift with my education of where it went in a different direction, is the comparables were when I was in elementary school, right? And maybe it was the same for you in elementary school going forward. But there was a lot of practical learning going on there. We went on field trips.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
We went to the Puyallup Fair. We went to Meeker Mansion.
Yeah.
We went to the different museums and not only just go there, but there was that buy-in of subject matter experts or the people that were running it who had pride to come through and tell you about what they had going on there. Yeah. And then it was mixed with some of the text and some of the in-classroom teachings and stuff like that. But for my daughter now, she'll be lucky to go on a field trip once a year.
Right.
And that might be to the pumpkin patch, which is great. And there's a lot to learn there.
That's fun.
And it's fun, but I'm seeing it in her and in others where they're turning to Google.
Right.
And they're turning to some of these other different platforms, because when I grew up, my parents had they bought us I don't even know, some old volume. It wasn't even the up-to-date stuff, but some old volume of some guy who walked by was selling Encyclopedia Britannica to include the Atlas bonus book at the end.
Yeah.
But that's what we had.
Yeah.
And now, I think we still have some of those. And I think it was my brother that was mentioning to me, maybe it was my father years ago when I was still in the military, that they had found them and looked through them and were just shocked on how much the information is just different because of technology and advancement or opinion or, maybe we shouldn't, breathe asbestos.
Hey.
I mean, life, it just pivots forward, but
totally.
Here's a question I have for you, though.
Sure.
And this is something that I've really been pondering on lately, is when we look at the education system and we look especially in the public school system, right? And I understand that, it's more than just the education nowadays. It's the safety and livelihood of our children, and it's some of the responsibilities. And I couldn't imagine being an educator in today's society with, this group of kids who are cool with it, this group of kids who aren't cool with it, these parents now that have something to say about it. Right. I mean, it's extremely, extremely complex, volatile area to play in. But the question is, we can get educators together to stand on Capitol Hill to scream for a salary raise.
Sure. Yeah.
Why have we not seen yet the major walks and the major decisions? And I'm not trying to start a revolution here.
Right.
But why aren't we talking about the context of the education?
Absolutely.
Why aren't we talking about the vessel or the delivery system in which that's going to happen?
I think people are afraid. Honestly, I think that's really what it stems from, especially when it comes to educators. Because we're talking about breaking the system that we've been using since we were born, right? Since they were born, since their parents were born, since their parents were born. We're talking about a system that's almost irrelevant at this point, right? And if you break it, what does that mean? And I don't know that there is one solid solution, but I think if we at least set up a structure that said, as students, we're going to set up an arena for you to fail. Right? Everybody looks at failure as a negative, right? They will not take the action for fear of failure, and that's a big issue. I think kids need to taste, right? They need to go out there, especially when I was young. I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I was interested in, and I did everything that I could to have the opportunity to at least feel it out, and see it. And I feel like that's suppressed in a lot of ways because it doesn't fit the box of what the education system wants to be pumping out. Right. So I think putting the education system in a position where not only are we going to teach practicality, right, for what's going to happen after school, but also giving a lot more options, right? We've built up this large private college system that pushes everybody, that makes you feel bad that now parents they're pushing their kids towards certain directions because they want to look good to other parents, right? And it's so the whole system is messed up, but I think it really does come down to the self-awareness of what's interesting to the kid, right? It's audacious, in my opinion, to think that the kids are going to fit into the box that the education system is trying to pump out. And it's why don't we let them decide, right? Why don't we give them the opportunity to say, hey, I tried this for 90 days or I tried this for a year and it just isn't for me, and to not look at that negatively. Right?
So when you look at that, educators, they can have this different delivery system, and because it's such an investment.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, your knowledge and your wisdom, where you decide to plug in your information, especially in today's society
Right.
is so important on who you listen to or what direction you decide to take. I talk to plenty of professionals out there that have gone and they have worked all their lives, or they've gone to school and they've pushed in a direction, and they're just not happy.
Yeah.
But what do? I mean, you've got so much time invested into something, and you look at the cost and you look at where everything's going now. Hitting the reset is not easy at that point.
No, it's
and so when you talk about practicality, I think that's something that needs to drive home, not at the kindergarten level.
Yeah, right.
But you need to look at we need to look at some of these different populations and in periods of life where it's extremely impactful to have that conversation.
Yeah.
We're in a huge financial situation right now as an economy and a society. But, when I look back once again and reflect, and I don't know what they're teaching on that level yet.
Right.
But when I was growing up, it was balance a checkbook.
Right. Which I guarantee you that's
Do
not
you
even
have a
discussed.
checkbook?
Yeah.
You do have a checkbook? Because I don't.
I hardly use it, but yeah.
Because everything's digital.
Right.
Right. I've got people that are really capable of calling me and telling me I owe them money.
Yeah,
Or
right.
I'm very capable of the alert popping up to say these bills need to be paid, or they're automatically done.
Yep.
So, what I would have wished, I guess, which would have been different at the time is, understanding that the internet maybe not have been mature at the time, but it was definitely doing something and moving in a direction. But I think there were so many influencers around me during that period that were saying the internet will never work. It's not going to be a thing.
So many people said that. This is a fad, right?
It's going to pass. It's too complicated to figure out.
Right.
Nobody will be able to do it, and it'll just die away.
Right.
And that's definitely, obviously, not the case.
Fear of change, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, honestly, I got the impression graduating from high school that I was being prepared for college. Mm-hmm. That was the path. And of course your counselors and everybody involved is always like, what college are you going to? Like, that was the societal push.
Did they ever ask you what you were going to go to college for, or what you were going to do with it?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah?
Yep, absolutely.
I had some of that as well. But even at the level now with colleges, there's that loop of, here's your degree.
Right. Yeah, right.
Here you go. Now you're fancy.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, how do you put this into a resume?
Exactly. Well, and here's the sick part. I went to a technical school after the military. I feel it was a complete waste of time because I've learned more in the few years that I've run businesses compared to life, obviously, than I ever did through college.
Right.
It taught me especially with entrepreneurship, because it was a business, a business-driven degree. I don't really feel that it was real life. And I don't know if it's because the instructors were stuck in academia and they had never actually executed what they were teaching, which I think that does happen. But I did not prepare me in any way, shape, or form holistically to go start businesses.
Yeah.
And I went and start businesses, and, I'm on my third one now, and all of a sudden I'm learning real quick.
Yeah.
And it hasn't always been rainbows and unicorns. I've learned a lot of hard lessons.
Sure.
But I feel like those hard lessons that I've learned were worth 10, 100, 1,000 times what my entire degree is worth.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Why did I waste my time and my money going to school when I didn't really get anything from it? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's a core problem.
Yeah.
We'll come back to education here in a little bit, but you joined the Air Force. What really influenced your decision to join the military?
Yeah, to be a part of something bigger than myself. Like I said before, I mean, once again, it's the big drive. I mean, I know for our generation, obviously 9/11 had a huge influence on that. I mean, being in this region, and how military centric we were. Yeah. I had a lot of friends that were signing up to go. Yeah. I immediately when 9/11, when that hit, and being in high school, there was a lot more chaos than what is usually discussed.
100%.
The event itself, complete tragedy, historical.
Yeah.
But when you look at a military community and you look at the phones that were going off, and back then nobody carried iPhones on them.
Right.
I mean, you would be lucky if you had a pager to include your parents.
Yeah.
So I mean, people were literally getting pulled out of their homes saying, "Hey, it's time to go."
Yeah.
And it had gotten real to that point, and I think for me, being able to look at people and behavior and things of that nature. It really affected them at the start, and that's where it began. People were seeing their parents go off. Then people were seeing, loved ones that were coming back, and some of the same friends that enlisted that we went in with, or we saw them coming back in different forms.
100%.
So once again, being so involved with the military as a child through family and stuff, there was that pride, and that's, this is what my calling is in the moment to go through and join and be a part of it and contribute to my country. And then in the other side of it too, ironically, and it's the small piece, is I obviously had nothing better to do.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Yeah, totally.
I had, very methodically thought about it, and I think a lot about a lot of things, obviously. And there was just no out. Weighing the pros and cons, it's just something that I had to do, and it paid off very well.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't regret it.
Yeah.
Or take it back for the world.
I honestly feel the same way. It was like when it came time to choose what direction I was going to head after high school, like there was only one choice. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah.
And that's obviously.
And the other thing that I noticed too was some of, because I was a junior when 9/11 hit. So by the time I graduated, I was kind of, already teetering around the idea of joining the military anyways. I just didn't know exactly which way I was going to go.
Right.
But I saw others that were coming back that were now, it was like they had something.
Yeah.
They had something that I couldn't get.
Yeah.
And they had that camaraderie. Yep. They had that purpose. They were on a level.
That's right.
And I was like, I need to be there. And that's kind of what the goal was from then on out, is getting to that level.
Yeah. I love it. What do you think? Well, first of all, what did you do in the Air Force?
Oh, so in the Air Force, it was a very organic job. So I went in basically as an aircraft mechanic on the KC-10. World's, I argue and say it's the world's largest aerial refueler. People argue with me all the time. Iran supposedly has a couple 747s that can hold some more gas, but no one's ever seen them fly.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'll play your game.
It's Iran.
But so I did that for a while, and it was extremely fun and fundamental of really getting in and getting mechanical and learning how that works. After that, I started to get really interested on, like I said, the other parts that moved to make the overall big picture. That led me towards ops and logistics. For a while, I was also, and a big part of my career, which leads me kind of in what I'm able to do today, is I was involved with program management very young. I was an E4 in a mobility outfit, and in the Air Force, that was before we had dismantled at the time our CSS because of requirements that we needed to trim the fat in certain areas.
Right.
So when that had gone away, they had for us, active duty personnel that were really running a lot of the commander stuff behind the scenes. And it could be from drug testing to physical fitness to all-out deployments. So I started getting more involved with understanding how that process works when you take a group of people and all of the assets required and move them across the world into chaos and then bring them back and nothing's broke, nobody's hurt. Right?
Yeah.
That was the goal. And we were good at it. But from there, I got to really understand the other logistics that were involved in it. What does it take to become hazardous material certified? And then I realized it wasn't much, and then we provided it, and so then I got the permission. I went through it, so I started experiencing all these little things, which basically turns you into like the go-to. You become the oracle of this hit the fan, there it goes, and then it's difficult, and that's the hard thing to portray, and you don't want to really release that to people with anything you do.
Totally.
But it's chaos, you know, and you got it controlled, but you make it look easy, but you know, you put yourself through hell to get to that.
Absolutely.
So, and then I also flew the world, and that was a pretty good experience, because once you get qualified enough in that career field, then you're going to go out abroad, and that's where it really got fun, because I'm on an aircraft that's, you know, multi-million dollars. There's only 6 of us. We're living like a family, and we're doing big stuff. And, you know, I caught myself numerous times looking out the flight deck window and seeing, you know, other aircraft flying in cell with you. And when you think about, you know, things on to scale, our aircraft, you know, on big missions, we're refueling other fighters. We could have the Army up to 75 of them on board with all their cargo. We're going in hot to a deployed location, and you're looking out the window and you're like 350,000 pounds of gas, 350,000, and then you're like, wow, there's 1 million pounds of gas
that's a lot
in the air, and it was done by maybe 16 people max at that level to keep it going. And it was just
Yep.
It's an experience I don't know if I'll get back.
I've definitely been one of those Army soldiers, dropping hot into combat deployment zones. So thank you.
The Army likes to make fun of it until it's we got to go. And so you've got two options. You can take the cruise for 6 months, or we can get you there in a couple hours.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's like,
right.
all right,
yeah.
well,
it's all in fun.
It is.
It's like Marines eating crayons, right?
Absolutely.
We don't need to talk about that.
Why don't we ever make fun of the Navy? Like
that's a good
I think that's the underground branch. Everybody makes fun of like, you want to talk about intelligence. People are like, oh, branch this, branch that. The Navy's coasting.
Oh yeah.
They're educated and they're.
Well, we can't let them coast anymore after
they won this.
After they won the most recent Army Navy game.
They did.
That was pretty rough. They hit us hard. Anyway. Yeah. Ideologically, what do you think the military gave you as far as how you make your decisions?
Fire and forget.
Yep.
Fire and forget. To be able to analyze what your move's going to be to really counter some sort of a disturbance or achieve some sort of a goal.
Yep.
I don't worry about the decisions I don't make.
Yeah.
I don't know what those outcomes will be, and I'm not going to experience them because I made this decision. So it's fire and forget. Yep. Now, it's very methodical.
Right.
I sit on things for a very long time. I sat on a lot of these ideas, and even sitting across from someone like you, I've been sitting across with this idea in my head for 15 years, 20 years. Yeah. So once that decision's made, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And to know that I'm humble.
Yeah.
And that's another thing
that
the military gave us. And I don't know at what point between innocent childhood to full-blown decision-making, messing everything up adult, we lose empathy.
Yeah.
But, that's something that the military also brings in that I don't, and I think that's lacking. And I don't know if we can get there.
Yeah.
But when you look at veterans in the culture and population, we're godfathers to other people's kids. We've been there we stood up at weddings and divorces and, emergency room visits. And I mean, it was just a different mentality because it was self, you're a self-servant. Or is that the proper term? Self-servant?
Yeah.
You're serving others. You're doing your thing, and you know that there's going to be bad that comes with it. But if you focus on the good and move forward with your vision, you gain clarity. And I think that I'm very humble also from the military as far as the space and the opportunities that I have.
I love it.
I went through a medical discharge. That's not, it's spoken about some, but not highlighted as much as I needed to be highlighted at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Where I didn't hit 20, 25, 30. And I would go back there if anybody's listening to this and has a waiver. No, I'm joking. I'm done with it. But but to be able to go back to that system and find where those pieces are disconnected, I think that's what's really fun for me now of just changing culture off of positivity and being selfless and moving through with integrity. I think just those small steps is really what's being able to pull for that. And for the Air Force particularly is one of the things that they were really open about, or at least the folks that I was around, is they were open to complaints and ideas.
Yeah.
So come through, complain, let us know what it's like. We want to hear from you, but prepare to go to work because
that's right.
We're gonna sit you down and we're gonna discuss this. We're gonna unpack it. We're either gonna fix it or we're gonna gain a further understanding. Yeah. And the people I served with.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I do it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. Like I always tell people, during one of my deployments, we worked with 5th Group Special Forces as a security detachment. And so I always like to tell everybody, if any one of those guys called me right now and said, hey, we've got a mission, grab your gear.
We're gone.
It's hands down, I'm on a plane, right? But that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that would get
my bags might be boxed up right now, but they're still packed.
Right. Yeah, they're ready.
And out of date.
Well, and the fire and forget, I think, is really big. Like, when it comes to decision making, we have to make a call, but it has to be educated, right? Yeah. We have to believe in the idea and the decision so much that we're ready to actually pull the trigger.
Yep.
And once that bullet's fired, it's fired, right? Yep. There's really nothing that can be done from that point. And yes, we want to analyze and almost watch film, just like football players do, but we can't dwell on it, right?
Right.
Fire
Absolutely.
and forget is big.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you have to be okay.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with that decision.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as you're comfortable and happy with that decision and ready to, react to whatever the next step might be, then you're in a good place.
Yep, 100%. I love it. So let's talk about what you're up to now, right? We talked about a little bit about where you've come from and what you've been doing. What are you currently doing? What kind of projects are you working on? What passions do you have?
Yeah, it's crazy right now. So I'm the outreach coordinator for Goodwill of the Olympics and Rainier regions military and veteran services program, and we've also folded in some different dynamics. We used to be known by Operation Good Jobs, which was really heavy, driven by the Walmart Foundation, which they've done amazing work with us. And helping people when it comes to transitioning service members and veterans of any era, any component, step into the employment realm and really get that value and that understanding. It's been a journey. And so that's what I've been doing for like the last 2 years, is really emphasizing and focusing on where we can really bridge the gap in certain things to give people maximum opportunities. And then it came with some other side projects. So I started about 2 years ago. I was doing what we would consider career navigation. That's sitting down with individuals and family members and talking about what your destiny is, what your plan. And it could be anything.
Right.
I mean, you could go into the trades, you could go into executive management, you could become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My job is to understand a lot of key factors and use formulas into why do you want to do that, and is it something that you're going to want to continue, and is this your true passion? Does it make sense for you right now?
Right.
Because with us, and what's organic and unique about the position I'm in now with our program, is we don't take credit at employment. We don't take credit when that job offer comes through. I mean, we're ecstatic, we'll celebrate with you, but we have a 12-month retention model. And with that 12-month retention model, it's that constant check-in of, what's next, because our clients are hungry. They get the job, now they want the promotion. They get the promotion, then they want to start the business. And that's the place that, I want our clientele to be in. I really want them to focus on, just because you obtain a goal, it's time to set another goal. And if you don't achieve that goal, then you need to continue working on that goal or reanalyze what that goal is. Helping people figure out the why is huge.
That's massive. And specifically with employment resources that I've seen in the past, and I feel, and I've spoken about this on veteran resources specifically, like across the board, so many of them they're created like infrastructurally, they're meant to just be that slice of the pie, right? This organization deals with employment, this one housing, this one schooling, this one spouse support, or this one emergency services, whatever it might be. They fill their slice of the pie, and once it's satisfied, that's it, right? Hey, if you need anything else, come back and holler at us, right?
Metrics and purpose,
Yeah, that's right. And so I like that mentality, that ideology of, hey, we're going to set goals, we're going to figure out long-term, short-term, but once we've achieved something, it's not done, right? That's a huge thing. So I love that 12-month.
And we've taken it off to another level, too, because our program's also open to military spouses.
Oh, nice.
And so, and then the real caveat to the whole thing is it's also open to dependents of working age.
Wow.
So you see a lot of shift in the veteran employment space where, there was a lot in the past of tailoring specifically to the post 9/11 veteran.
Right.
But now it's opened up to where you could change, the impact on a veteran, and they'll take that over to their house or wherever they're at, and it'll show. But you can make a much larger impact if you affect that whole family.
It's huge.
So we've taken situations, for instance, where, there's a transitioning service member, or, actually go back. There's a better one where there was a Desert Storm veteran who had gotten, released from the Army, had done his thing, and was hugely successful, and then was slammed in the side with everybody else with, the economy crashing and layoffs. From there, was able to recover, but was never hitting that value that they should. Where we were able to help them, and then their spouse was working, we were able to get their spouse set up for a promotion internally. We weren't even asking their spouse to leave the organization, just grow within it, and we supported that. And then there's their children, 15, 16, 17 years old, that are coming out of the school system, and we're priming them with their resumes now. We're priming them with targeting industry now. And what we're seeing, I think, at least I'm seeing, is we're connecting these dots now where we're able to fold in the practicality along with what they have going on, which is allowing them to develop that vision of where they're going to take it off to the next level. And you're developing that path. So when they get out, they're further ahead than we were with their peers because they understand it. They're not waiting until they're graduated or separated or retired from the military to figure out how they're actually going to achieve their goal or what they're going to do when they grow up. Essentially, like we joke around, they already have an idea, and I think that's important.
That's huge. No, that's huge. What would you say is new and exciting in the employment space, period? Like, obviously, employment has gone through a lot of phases lately. What do you think is the right here and now?
There's a lot. There's a lot of things, especially in the Puget Sound area, that we're looking at and discussing. You know, we are hearing the communities loud and clear as far as what some of the pain points are. And we can get into that. You know, childcare is a big thing that they're pushing right now, and it's a struggle. These are very complex issues in nature.
Totally.
And it's like moving mud around the window. You know, you can move it from one area. It's just very difficult, but I do see the progress. I do sit in on the meetings with the higher levels and understanding how they're actively engaging and talking about these things, which I think is great.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we're definitely moving in a good direction. Second chance employment. Individuals, especially in the veteran space, where I've heard stories time and time again, you know, from the military side of people that are, you know, on the wrong side of right sometimes. They make a poor decision, the law doesn't fare out with them, you know, and they find it very hard to come back. And I think that now that, especially with the state of Washington understanding that, you know, we are very fruitful when it comes to employment opportunities, and especially, and I like to break it down in two categories. You know, we're fruitful when it comes to employment, but we're still, even then, very fruitful in the pie as far as the percentage of meaningful employment and sustainable jobs that are out there. And bridging that gap to somebody who might have some sort of a criminal record to get it evaluated a little bit better. And working with Thurston County and Pierce County specifically when it comes to the vet court and what they've done to spool that up. I've seen that thing with some of those folks start up, you know, from the incubation phases all the way to where it's at now. And it's a beautiful model to where they've created this rehabilitation system to continue to help people step back in the community and to get away from those poor decisions that they made. Yeah, punish them. You know, things need to happen, but at the same time, how far does it go?
Right.
And in the employment realm of understanding that, you know, these positions, these opportunities open, you know, that's a great thing to go through. The other, I mean, just in the area, just the silos that are being broken down and the collaborations within the community are just something that is just not spoken enough about. People coming together and really throwing everything on the table, coming to a sound decision and supporting each other in their projects or in their programs, organizations, so that it can bring, you know, value to the community or to the end user. And once again, we talk about that camaraderie and we talk about that, you know, what's in it for them and not what's in it for us. And it's a beautiful thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You obviously get to see a lot of different industries, talk to a lot of high-level people in those industries. What are you drawn to the most? What industry do you, for any reason, really are attracted to?
Yeah, for me, I think it's still, you know, all really well across the board. But if I had to pinpoint it, I would say it falls into it with advanced manufacturing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's just so incredible, the things that they're doing. And I go with Camp Center for Advanced Manufacturing at Puget Sound. I've been to some of their manufacturing symposiums and just seeing the way that people are putting ideas together. And I've just learned so much. I mean, to see where innovation is going and how it's being able to be controlled. It's scary because there's a lot of vulnerabilities that are still uncovered yet, but it's very amazing to see what we're able to do with artificial intelligence, augmented reality. I mean, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about doing podcasts today and pushing out content in the form of text, where I think coming pretty fast here, a lot quicker than people realize, is it's going to be voice.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be, you know, you're talking to your device and telling them to post it out, and it's going to shoot it to your entire network, every platform. I don't know if Amazon just got an idea off me. We can discuss it later. But I'm just saying, like, that's you know, that's where we're going. I talked to somebody in Bellevue at one of the conferences for camps, and they were working for a small company, and they had a side gig going on where they're using robotics to manufacture things and set everything up that are being controlled by the internet halfway across the world.
That's crazy.
So it's going to be interesting, and I'm really excited for the future when it comes to advanced manufacturing. And then you look at other things like, you know, what the aerospace industry is doing with Boeing, and I mean, it's still huge. And you want to talk about a company with grit and resiliency. I mean, look at Boeing.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, they're gonna be okay.
Oh,
you know, and it's just because they're so intelligent with everything that they're going forward with, and that we've watched as a society Boeing take these little knocks and these setbacks, you know, periodically through time, but they come back stronger than ever. And, you know, just the things that they're doing is extremely amazing.
What excites me about the manufacturing industry in general, we get into a conversation about lean manufacturing. And that, oh my God, does that excite me. You know, we've got Paul Akers up in Bellingham. I don't know if you know Paul, but Paul is one of the most genius lean. I mean, he's almost, I would consider him to be an evangelist for lean. I mean, if that were a religion, I might get on board. You know, it's such a fascinating mindset to see how much waste we have as a country,
right,
and how much business waste there is out there, and to see that. You know, to have the ideology and the mentality going into it to say, hey, let's think about this differently. And his employees, I've watched videos of Paul's where his employees come into that manufacturing plant every day, and they spend, I think it's 30 minutes, but it's a chunk of time to improve one of their processes just by 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That's it. A 2-second increase. And that doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a lot. But when you daisy chain that over time, holy crap.
Before you know it, you got an hour.
I mean, you can get so much done with that mentality, and I'm trying to implement that in our businesses and our projects and everything that we're doing. It's so that manufacturing specifically, I mean, that's where it started with Toyota, but man, it really is bleeding over into other industries.
It absolutely is.
That's exciting to see.
And it's bleeding over with me as well with my professional life, and what I've been able to do is, you know, it's not necessarily working smarter versus harder, because I'm still working extremely hard.
Oh yeah.
But it's just looking at low cost ways to really be efficient. And I really take a look at what I can control.
Yeah.
You know, I can complain about the bigger picture, but I can't really feel myself complaining about that if I'm not doing something about at the micro level of what I can control.
Totally.
And taking some of those same principles has really led to a significant production increase with not just in my job, my 9 to 5,
your life,
but it's coming into my life. And now things like this are becoming available because, you know, it's that moment where it just makes sense. Yeah. I call it the symphony of light bulbs when they start exploding.
I like that.
It's that moment where it just starts to click. Yep. And like I said, just to be very humble and respect the space that you're in. Absolutely. And know that you're not guaranteed it and have fun with it in the moment. That's what's gotten me to where I'm at.
Well, and that's, you're really just boosting bandwidth. Yeah. Right? I mean, and I mean efficient bandwidth, not just I have all the time in the world. It's I'm better using the time.
Right.
It's an amazing thing. I could talk about that all day. So, I mean, I've always known you to be a pretty forward-thinking guy.
Yes.
Let's talk about hypothetical. I love hypotheticals. If you had no limit whatsoever, right? Let's put you at the very top of whatever organization you want to be at the top of. If you had all the money, all the time in the world, where does Steve Lynch put his attention? What projects come to fruition? What do you think is the biggest impact that you can have on society, on business, on life in general?
Yeah.
With no limit.
Yeah, I think with no limit, you know, I've pondered on this a lot throughout my life, and I think right now, and it's always changing, but right now my no limit scheme would be dumping awareness and information back into society.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it starts with our youth because you have to start your foundation if you want to continue your future. I think that's we need to pay attention to our youth and what they're going through. Yeah. And maybe sometimes rather than just trying to fix everything, just listen. You know, and just really figure that out. And you know, like what we do as parents at home is we don't like to say no a whole lot. We like to have a conversation of why that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, you know, when you're dealing with the sophistication of today's youth, that they may convince you. You know, that was a trip for me when my daughter was 4. You can't have ice cream for breakfast. But by the time she was done, I think that we eat ice cream for breakfast every now and then. You know, and
that's amazing.
Because you got to look at what's important for them.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to give them that taste. And I think that, you know, somewhere along the line, certain populations have just overall had this mentality of, you know, you don't get a seat at the table until you're 18. Yeah. You don't get a seat at the table until you're 21.
You're under my house. It's my rules.
You know, that's what you're really dealing with. And I think that structure is still important. And my brother and I were growing off that, but it needs to be guided.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, where I grew up, where I feel that we ran under some pretty strict parameters, we respected, it was a very old school of learning.
Yep.
But we were also encouraged to go and get what we want. We were encouraged to work hard.
Yeah.
We were encouraged to treat everybody equally and humbly.
Yeah.
And it paid off, and I think that, if I dumped it in, it would be more into self-awareness. It would be more into developing resiliency. It would be more into developing, the grit and just looking forward and being empathetic. Yeah. I think that I'll go back to that. It needs to be there where, you don't have to agree with somebody, but you need to be empathetic to the fact that you're in their space.
This sounds a lot. I mean, a lot of these factors are geared towards emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that's where obviously there's a lot of awareness around that ideology and that idea. coming to light a lot more, where a lot of people, have grown up thinking, hey, it's all about how smart you are.
Absolutely.
What's your IQ? And especially when I'm hiring employees, like, I care less. I mean, obviously I want smart people on the team, but I'm way more weighted towards emotional intelligence things. And I put a lot more questions and testing into emotional intelligence over IQ in a huge way now.
And a huge foundation to really great centric customer service in general. And I know we've seen a decay in that in certain areas for various reasons.
Yeah.
But just getting back to basics a little bit, I think would open up. And so I'm out there instructing and teaching and showing the value as far as, how to do good for others and stop keeping score.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big.
And that's really, over time, you just start to realize that you can't pinpoint where it happened necessarily, but it just is.
Yeah.
And, I really want others out there, especially in today's day and age with technology and how undervalued the space is on the internet, social media, digital platforms, things we're doing now, to get creative and get their story out there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are really afraid of judgment. I'm going to get judged on this.
Sure.
It's going to be good or bad, but I'm going to get judged on this, and I'm okay with that because it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
That's right.
I'm okay with it. I'm moving forward in a direction that I think that will create positivity for the ones around me.
Yeah.
And I'm more interested on, the success and the creativity of what others are going to do for their lives than what's set for mine.
Yeah.
And that's my mentality is I'm moving forward. I'm destined for great things. I'm bringing as many people as I can with me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, and so many, I mean, believe me, I've got plenty of haters too.
Yeah.
And the fact is they just don't have the context that I have.
Right.
And they never will.
Right.
Nobody ever will. Even the people who are absolutely closest to me don't have that level of context. And so when people want to throw shade, you have to turn to empathy.
Right.
Right? That person took time out of their day to hate on me.
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
Man. Wow. But it's, they're never going to have the context. It's almost like making a judgment call, but only having 10% of the picture.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That just logically, that doesn't make sense. And it really, if you're self-aware of that, it happens a lot less.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think one of the things that really for me that I've noticed and studied within my own content and things that I've been through is I try to talk from a very general aspect. Everybody comes from a different walk of life and some facet.
Totally.
Where it gets dangerous is I've gotten to the point sometimes where I've been able to really relate to somebody on a topic or a conversation, and you create that bond.
Yeah.
But then when you back out of that one-to-one setting and now you're talking to a group anymore, it's kind of like they're sitting there going, "Wait a minute, that's not me at all."
Right.
I'm drawn to you based off of what you said, but now you're very broad, but you can't please everybody. And so, but at the same time, you can't be afraid of really just being conservative with what you have to say. If not, then what's the point? We're fighting for, for attention. We're fighting for getting information out there and building a brand.
Right.
So you can't just be like, oh, well, yeah, it's cool if it's hot, but it's cool if it's, cold too.
Right.
Call it warm or move or make a decision.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes in, and people get bitter on that.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of people who, I mean, we were talking about this before the show. There's a lot of people who have a genuine fear of judgment, and not just a fear of it, but the fear is so strong it will prevent them from doing something that they actually want to do. That's a very scary mentality to me, because there's 7.7 plus billion people on this planet.
Yeah.
You're not going to please everybody. So if you're not going to take action, you're not going to execute on an idea that you're passionate about, or creating a piece of content that you're passionate about, just because people are going to be out there hating, like, you're never going to do anything. Right.
And the dangerous game,
stuck by that fear.
And the dangerous part is misery loves company.
Oh yeah.
So people, I've noticed, and I hate to say it, but I've kind of leaned off of the Facebook.
Sure.
At this point in my life, I mean, I have family on there. I've got
sure.
Other people that I've served with, and I'm still aware. I mean, I might not be talking to you guys, but I'm watching. I'm reading.
Sure.
Every now and then, but the negativity on there is people will go on there and say something negative, or they'll go in that direction because other people will join on that, and they'll start to pick up on those flaws, because it's easier for those individuals to get a group of hyenas to come and jump you from the side about the way you look or what you said or your opinion than it is for them to develop a positive following.
Yeah.
So when I look at that mentality, and I've been there in the past, it feels real good to me to say, I've got over 3,000 followers. You've got 400.
Right.
Sally Pants 21. And they just loved you based off of you bashing other people because you're all insecure and comfortable in that space.
Yeah, right.
And, I don't like to call anybody out, but there's certain populations when it's bad behavior, I'll do so.
Sure.
So if you're spreading negativity and you're angry because the world's not evil.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have a battle.
Yeah.
And I'm going to win every time.
There's also, we live in a cancel culture now that's obviously been talked about by, Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle. And they do it in a pretty hilarious way. But what they're talking about is real.
Absolutely.
And it's scary because everybody does jump on that bandwagon. But I think we live in such a, I'm going to put my opinion out there, and there is a bandwagon effect there where people will just jump on because they see everybody else is jumping on, and okay, I'm going to be a part of the crowd. And there is some, there's some active psychology behind that on what causes that and how people feel when they're jumping into those kinds of situations. But you're absolutely correct, and I think the focus that we bring to the table is just positivity, right?
Absolutely.
We may have a negative opinion of something, and we'll suppress that more often than not.
Right.
We want to be pushing positivity out in the world because whatever kind of, social experiment that the mainstream media is running about how negative our world is not the real picture.
Right.
There's a common phrase that says, turn off the TV and go talk to your neighbor and find out how the real world is currently running. And I think that's very accurate. I think people are so dejected from real life and they're so married to the digital and social space, which, look, it's a relevant space to be on. But I think there's a limit, and it's very easy to be brainwashed almost into that space. And I think, there's a lot of sheep out there that just, they'll follow.
Absolutely.
Follow anything.
Absolutely.
Right?
And they want to say like it's destroying us. And things like that. And to a point I can see if they allow that to happen where it could seed itself in. But the internet is not doing anything different to us
100%
than what we've been doing to ourselves behind the scenes. It's just your life used to be able to be private.
Yeah.
But the moment now that you log in and you decide to say something, you've left yourself subjected to a lot of different opinions.
This is exposing us.
Yeah.
That's really what this comes down to. And thank God there was no social media when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah, right. We wouldn't be here.
It would definitely be bad. But that's what it is. It's so much more of a public space.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that social media exposes us. I don't agree with the mentality that it's ruining us, and especially parents. Like, I see more parents now that are like, my kid's on his iPad 24/7, and, I don't know what to do about it, and we've been dealing with it for years. Well, who gave them the iPad?
Right.
Who allows them to be on the iPad 24 hours a day, right? This is such a self-reflection question, but people don't want to hear that.
Right.
The device is the problem. Oh, Facebook's the problem. Oh, social media is the problem.
And people want to also look at it too, like, well, my kids are doing this now, so that's a generational, that's a divide, that's a crevasse. So
100%.
I'm going to go ahead and let them do that, but I have no interest in what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where for us, my turnaround is I'm looking at the subject matter experts in what we have going on. And as scary as it is, sometimes in the moment, and I'm very rookie at this, but my 7-year-old talking about TikTok.
Right.
I don't know what that is.
Right.
So I go on and I study on it, and I realize it's a big deal. And even though it's not the, the earth-shattering thing that's going to change everything.
Right.
But it's hot now.
There's a lot of attention on it.
And that crowd is going to move into what's hot next. And you want a seat so you can move with that crowd.
That's
so
right.
You'll put yourself in prime position.
Preach.
Because if not, then you're just accepting that, and then you're going to move forward. And that's where I think failure comes in. That's where I think that you start to throw your own barriers in front of your goals of destiny.
Yep.
That's where you start to find a lot more confusion. And social media and the internet has become a way of communication.
Yeah.
And it's important. I think the other values are good too, still that self-interaction, but that's where it comes on us as a parent to say, put it down, we're going to go out and do this. But I think it's also the responsibility of asking, what are you watching?
Yeah.
I thought this was all kind of ridiculous at one point in my life. And it wasn't too long ago.
Sure.
Loading up YouTube Kids. I have friends who work in very high places that said that that's a very secure place for her to go and learn and without all the dangers of social media or luring. But I was listening to people, grown adults, talk like babies and playing with dolls. And I'm like, this is, an issue. At first, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
But then I saw the articles and I saw the news breaking out on how these kids are getting free gifts, and my daughter's expensive.
Right.
So I'm like, wait a minute. So you're doing that, and then to caveat that, they're monetized and making money off of it.
Yeah. And some quite a bit, actually. There's a kid, I read about a kid who's 6 figures. And he's like 8.
Yeah.
Like, what? He's just reviewing toys. It's like,
my fear
crap.
with that,
what a
though,
time
is,
to be alive.
But what are they doing with that money?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's no way that child knows exactly what accounts to dump that in to have, the transparent profile. Or,
Right.
And move forward into equity. Like, what are they doing with it? And, I'm just hoping that, they're going along the same lines of, appreciating the moment, but setting themselves up for something bigger. But,
absolutely.
That's where I think it could also hurt the youth.
Sure.
You gotta talk about both sides here. And I think it could hurt because if that YouTube video or that thing isn't hot anymore and you made that 6-7 figures off of it, and now you're grown and you don't know where you want to go or what you want to do, it can become dangerous. Just like, in the entertainment industry, we saw that growing up in our time periods. We started to see, a lot of these individuals who were huge and they did well, but then they grew up and they weren't cute anymore. Right, they were doing this, or they decided to do drugs, or, different things in life happened.
Yep.
And before you know it, they don't talk about it anymore.
Right.
And where does that leave them? So I think that, it could be very successful, but I think like everything else, it needs to be respected and monitored very closely.
Absolutely.
To make it highest value.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things that I've seen in that same umbrella of the conversation there is I had a parent that I was talking to the other day that was saying something along the lines of, my kid plays video games all day, every day. That's all he does. He goes to school. I'm sure that's all he does is talk about video games at school, or maybe does them, right? But then he comes home and all he's doing is playing video games. And they're unwilling to even look at the possibility that may be what he's passionate about, and that may be the direction that he wants to go.
Right.
But in their old school mentality, that's not the route you go down to be an adult.
Right.
Except that there are people making 7 figures on playing video games right now.
Absolutely.
What?
Absolutely.
It's a real thing. And it didn't used to be back in the day, right? You couldn't play original Mario NES and make $1 million.
Right.
But you can sure as heck do it on Twitch now, right?
Absolutely.
So the world has opened up, and I think there's so many people who have taken their finger off the pulse. I mean, that's really what this comes down to is, you said self-awareness. Mm-hmm. If you're not aware of what's going on around you and the implications of what's going on, which I think is even more important,
right?
Then of course you're going to be anti-video game. Of course you're going to try and push your kid in a direction that says, why aren't you doing better in school? Why aren't you going into college? Why aren't you doing these things when that's probably not even the right fit for that kid?
Yeah.
Right?
Ladies and gentlemen out there, I just want to say that chances are if you are enjoying your new technological device, after the holidays or whatever, chances are the individual that not only created that, but the people that work in human resources, the people that work in finance and logistics and planning and project management and just everything having to do with it, all the way down to the philanthropic departments, they played video games. Yep. I hate to break it to you, but they're sticking it to the man right now by saying, hey, look, I did this.
Yep.
I nerded out.
Yep.
And maybe, being on the global stage and making $10 million for beating the mission in Call of Duty isn't for me.
Right.
However, I was the person that, run the analytics behind that.
Yep.
I made the lights come on.
It's a huge thing.
It's an industry.
Thing. Yeah. Oh, it's a big industry, and it's growing so fast.
And you get people that complain about that as they go out and purchase the $70 video game for their kids.
Oh my God, exactly.
It's
the hypocrisy is palpable.
Yeah.
It's palpable. Let's talk a little bit about the Puget Sound. You've been in this area for a minute. What brought you here? Let's start with that. What brought you to the Puget Sound?
When my dad had gotten out of the Army, we had family that was up here. My grandfather was working for Boeing at the time.
Okay.
My dad, he had gotten out. We had moved from Germany back to Washington to be with our immediate family.
Gotcha.
His brother and his sister are out here as well, and my mom's parents were out here, and along with her siblings.
Gotcha. And when ballpark, what time was this around?
Probably about 89.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if that dated me just now. So people are going to be like, wow, he's old. Others are going to be like, he's still pretty young.
Yeah, right.
It'll fare out either
it's
way,
all
right?
Perspective, yeah.
But, so we came back to the Puget Sound area after that. My dad had gone to Bates.
Yep.
That's where he had picked up his skill to be a machinist, and
nice.
He got picked up at Boeing. And then that's kind of how that all wrapped up and wrapped around.
Yeah.
And then I joined the military and set off. And it was a very scary goal because I said I was going to go, and I told all of my friends and family, I was like, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
You know, that was their biggest fear is
Yeah,
you're going to go see the world and Spanaway, Washington isn't going to be there anymore.
Sure.
Yum, Washington isn't going to be on your scope.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think because of the upbringing and because of the love of the community, when I come back here every single time, you know, there was no competition. And I've been places.
Powerful.
I've seen things in the world.
Yeah, you've been all over.
You know, and, you know, that's what brought me back.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Is there anything in the Puget Sound that's really impacted you? Like really?
Culture. Culture. I mean, you know, looking around at what we have around the state and the different mentalities and just the culture. I mean, it's there. You know, we have a good sense, I believe, especially with my group of people. And I think we need to go in that as well, where, you know, I look at culture from my purview because of the people that I have in my circle.
Right.
And the way that my parents, you know, brought me up and what we're exposed to. So that's one of the things that I think is amazing around here, seeing people come together and seeing the opportunities that are laced out.
That's huge.
It's huge.
No, it's huge. And it's funny because there's so many people that they're anti-people because this is a crazy society we live in. But we just threw a community event in Tacoma where we had a big bonfire. Yeah. We invited the sheriff's department out and we had them come talk about safety and security in your own personal neighborhood and how that's a personal responsibility.
Right.
And how a 4-minute turn time for an emergency is you need to be prepared, right? Because they may not get there immediately. You know, that kind of a thing. And all we got from that event was comments about thank you for bringing everybody together so we could see each other face to face. Like they thrived on that. People wanted to meet other people in their community and they wanted to be involved and to see that firsthand because it wasn't just a couple of comments. Like we got it from almost everybody. We got even people who weren't there shot me messages and they're like, you know, thank you for putting on this kind of event. We hope you do it again so we can come to the next one. Like that kind of a thing. It's like, you know, people, I think, this also comes down to turning off the news, right, and really listening to what's going on in your immediate area, right?
Yes, and I think that's important. I mean, they're going to push out whatever they need to draw your attentions on everything. And I think that what's good for me is I've been able to keep things very non-political, and I absolutely will continue the best I can to keep things in that direction, keep things very neutral. But isn't it weird, though? Like you just said something that just really triggered my mind to, you know, you put together something and you brought back an old school way of taking an individual A, putting them in the room with individual B, telling them that it's a safe space, that it's okay for them to interact. Where do we lose that? You know, and I think that people are doing it very well right now, have the balance of the social media platforms, the internet, the technology, but they still have that fine-tuned balance of being able to go into a group of people. You know, and have that conversation. For me, it's very binary. You know, I'm able to be on camera or write something. This is who I am. This is what you're going to get. You make the decision whether or not that you want to bring me into that circle or you want more of me or put me away. You know, but I can do it in front of a crowd. I could do it in front of one-on-one, in front of a person without a mic. I mean, I do a lot of stuff off the record.
That's right.
You know, and it's just communication. It's loving people. And I think that's – but isn't that weird, though? Like you said that you bring them together and how they reacted on that. And it's like,
it's huge. They're like, nobody else is doing this. Or we've never seen any event like it. I'm like, this was a pretty simple thing to put together. Like it wasn't that hard. It just took a little bit of logistics and a creative idea. And they're like, oh my God, when are you doing the next one? All right. Well,
and that's exactly where I'm going with some of these projects and some of my approach and tactics and some of the stuff is it's that. You know, and it's the same thing of like, wow, I can't imagine like how much our culture has changed within our organization because everybody seems happier here. Well, let's start off with that person over there giving that person a compliment.
That's right.
And then it turned into something else. And then it turned into something else. And now she holds the door open. And he's getting projects done on time. And they realized that, you know, they were angry at the system or the process or the outcome deliverable of the whole organization. That they lost focus of what was in front of them and what they could control.
So
and now they've changed the environment. And it's really cool to be able to just guide and shepherd that to say, you know, well, you know, it might not mean anything, but try giving a compliment or try this or that.
There's so many people, and I see this, both employers and employees think that at their level, they don't have the ability to impact. They're like, I'm just a nobody, or I'm just a low-level person. There's nothing that I can do to impact this, and they don't realize how much ability they have to move things.
But you know what? There's another thing that I look at, too, when it comes to all that, and that's it's not so much the ability, but are they willing to put in the work?
Yeah, that's a big one. Things take work.
Right.
Everybody wants something that's easy.
Right. And some people get it easy, right?
Yeah.
But for this podcast, for instance, how long have we been in discussions about this and all the stuff that comes into it? Now,
Yeah.
maybe I'm exposing myself a little bit here, but I thought about it a lot. I thought about it on the ride here.
Yeah.
Complete silence, reading and studying it. I'm up until midnight.
Yeah.
There were times where, Stephanie would come down and get me off the couch.
Right.
Because I've fallen asleep. And then she wakes me up, and then, it turns into a thing because I don't go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I pick up where I left off.
Yeah, right.
Because it's that grind,
Yeah.
Now, I sleep, but I believe I try to get 6 hours.
Yeah.
6 to 7 hours.
Yeah.
That other 16 hours is going through life, and maybe not with an objective mission of I have to do this today or I have to do that tomorrow, but I'll go out and experience things, and just the partnerships and the deals that turn into things for our organization that I work for, and maybe what I've got going on the side. I mean, that's what it's really about. And I wouldn't have gotten that by, watching Game of Thrones.
Right.
I mean, I got the gist. I get it.
Sure.
And I'm glad everybody enjoyed that show.
Sure.
I didn't watch it because I was doing this.
Yeah.
I was studying. I watched Game of Thrones through social media.
Yeah, right.
I watched Game of Thrones based off of what you felt about it, how big of a following did it have, all the spinoffs. I watch Harry Potter the same way.
Yeah.
It's, I've seen it, but at the same time, what I'm really studying are people's reactions to it, because that's where you find the common threads of how people, how they perceive things and how they want to interact with it. Yeah. And I just jump on the boulevard at the right time, and now I'm in the mix.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I love it. No, and that's huge. And I think the big thing that resonated with me there is, there's a lot of hustlers and entrepreneurs out there that I talk to that are like, I get 3 hours of sleep so I can hustle. I'm like, it's not about how many hours you sleep. You could sleep 10 hours a day. That doesn't matter.
Right.
What are you doing with the other 14?
Right.
Right? How that time is spent is what's critical.
Right.
Are you sitting on the couch messing around? Are you, scrolling through Reddit?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a lot of time sucks out there.
Absolutely.
Netflix is a good one. And look, I've got some favorite shows on Netflix.
You have to decompress. And I do too at times. It's just.
But it is a conscious thought of how you're spending that time when you're not sleeping. Right. And this really comes down to an audit. Right. And I've had to do this with my employees. I've done it with myself multiple times. And I find, wow, I spent 2 hours of my day on scrolling through Facebook. Why? Yeah. Did I gain anything valuable out of that? And I go back and audit, because if I did, then obviously those 2 hours were well spent.
Absolutely.
But 99% of the time, they're not. Right? It's just social numbness, where I'm just kind of scrolling through things, seeing what everybody else is doing, or posting some stupid picture from Reddit or whatever, So it's what you're spending your time on, I think, makes a big difference. But being, this all comes back to self-awareness.
It does.
Right?
And once people are self-aware and realize that time is something they're not going to get back.
Ooh.
So that means, it forces folks like us to really focus on the deliverable, and it's this time that we really need to spend on this right now.
That's right.
And then if you can flip that, right?
Yeah.
And you can look like, if you treat your money like you treat your time.
Ooh.
There you go.
Powerful.
There you go.
It's powerful.
And now you're sitting in this realm where there's a better understanding. And I fully agree. And I don't want to sit here and sound like, I'm constantly working all the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I have my outlets. I have my relief. I have my balance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm in a position where I might be sitting somewhere, or I might be waiting for something, if I'm not actively utilizing that time, then I'm wasting it. And the more you spend on something, I truly believe that everything has a jump off point and everything has a breaking point.
Yeah.
Everything you do.
Yeah.
It's a balance, it's a science, it's who we are. And I want to be careful with the whole science word, because I'm not throwing a thesis, but maybe someone out there will get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Is if you have a time limit on when something's supposed to happen, the amount of work that you put in properly will accelerate how much faster that happens.
That's right.
It's a very common thing that we use when it comes to projects and how we have our metrics, our deadlines, and our pillars, our detents. But we don't look at it for the big picture. And if you're really in that mind frame, and I hear that all the time is, I'm a project manager, I'm this and I'm that. And it's like, okay, what are you doing with your time? Or like you said, dealing with the entrepreneur who's like, Monday through Friday, where it's almost like they've made their own cush hours.
Yeah, right.
And an idea that hasn't launched yet.
Yeah.
But they're going to make 7 figures.
Right.
Right now,
I hear that. So
right now,
yeah.
I don't know the latest data, but I saw something that pushed out of the Department of Labor right now. and it still stands true. The 1% of the world financially, $440,000.
Yeah.
That's what they're making annually, $440,000. So where are these blind ideas coming out that I'm going to make $1 million a year?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
and if it happens, great. But the reality is, if you're setting it up, if that'd be like going out and putting down, the down payment on the home.
Yeah.
Or, leasing the Lambo or renting the Lambo on the daily because that check's going to come any minute and I'll be able to buy it in cash.
That's right.
I mean, where are people's heads at? And that's what the fear is.
Well, and this is a question of metrics.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, if I'm an entrepreneur or want a 7-figure business, they make the 7 figures their metric.
Right.
Right? That's the level of success.
Right.
And a true entrepreneur is going to find pretty quick that that's a vanity metric.
Right.
Right? That's not the right answer.
And I tell my clients all the time, some people want 6 figures, and that's great, but please believe, the game is a lot smarter than we are, right?
Yeah.
So you want to go do 6 figures, you better be prepared to do more than that because it's just not the way life is. You want to make 100,000, good. That organization's going to get about 140,000.
Yeah, right.
You're an investment.
Yep. It's also so funny to me, the people, and this is usually the first question that I ask. I say, all right, you want to make 6 figures. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Let's go through your expenses.
Right.
Right? They're always looking at how do we boost instead of how do we reduce.
Right.
And people would be surprised how easy it is to hit 6 figures if you at least audit. And I'm not saying people need to live on a ramen diet. I don't live on a ramen diet, right? You don't need to live on a ramen diet. But how many Starbucks are you drinking a month?
Right.
Right? How many streaming services do you currently have running? What's your phone bill look like?
Exactly.
Right? These are all the questions. What's your rent? What's
how
your
much
rent
fast
look like?
food do you eat?
Yeah, right? These are all things that if you really, if you're brutally honest with yourself and you audit, you're going to find your 6 figures.
Oh, yeah,
right?
for sure.
It's easily there. People really underestimate that.
And you know what a lot of people find before they hit that 6-figure mark?
What's that?
Happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Content.
Yep.
They'll figure out to them what is money to them.
That's right.
And then they'll move in that direction. And I think that's a really important thing. I got friends who are making a lot of money.
Oh, sure.
And they hate their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, they're miserable.
And they're stuck. And once again, we talk about never being stuck. And they're stuck because they've invested so much into it and it's working so well. Yep. And once again, now that fear is starting to taking over of if I pivot and I go in a different direction.
What are people going to think?
Am I going to go from, the Hamptons to the streets?
Right.
There's that discontent. And I think a lot of them, when I ask them, do you regret everything? They're saying, I regret when I found happiness and my life was content around that. Why didn't I just stay with that?
Yeah, right.
Why I had happiness and why I continued to push in a different direction that got me to happiness and then pushed me out of happiness.
100%.
I think it's powerful.
100%. Well, we've talked about a lot of things here today, so I'm gonna ask a really difficult question.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've talked about a lot of ideologies and messages, but if you could pick one message to put out into the world today, what would that be?
Care for each other. Care for each other. Understand that you can't care for others if you can't care for yourself. And that's huge. And you can fight and you might think you have it and you give it your all, but your all isn't going to be what other people need if you can't take care of yourself. Coming together and bringing in, like I said, that empathy portion and really just driving it home that, stop taking score. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop taking score of others. Stop taking score of, what somebody's wearing or how much money they have. Who is it? There was that public speaker I'd heard, Gary
V.
Yeah, Gary V.
Yeah.
And there was something that he said, and I want to quote him on this as best as I can, but he said there's too many people out there that hate what they do.
Yeah.
So that they can make money and go buy stuff that they don't need, don't like, don't want, so that they can impress people that they hate.
Yeah, that's right.
Or impress people
that's
that they
pretty
despise.
Dead on. I know the quote you're talking about.
And I know, in my realm, in certain forums, and I've got 17 suits and tuxes. I mean, I'm ready to go.
Right.
I'm ready to go. Social media, you call me up. But at the same time, you got to know when that balance is.
Yeah, right.
And I think, my question to folks and my challenge, my call to action to folks is, what are you specifically doing that you have control over? And the bigger question is do you know what you have control over?
Yeah.
Identify yourself again and not be afraid to reset or re-hit that identify. I don't care where you're sitting. You could be the CEO of a company.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there and going, you know what, this has been great and I've worked hard and it's turned into something, but I'd like to do something better in that direction, who's the only person telling you no is you.
Oh, preach. Yeah.
You know, because you might not be able to jump right on the world stage, or you might not be able to take that platform ever.
Right.
But with social media, or just with your thoughts, or opening up within your community, or here's a concept, take it home to your kitchen table.
Yeah. 100%.
Grab your family and sit around and talk about what's going on.
100%.
Listen and discuss it, and find if the answers and the clarity doesn't come within that, to treat everybody with respect. And then you're also creating a very contagious culture in a positive way to go out there and do good to others. And before you know it, you know, that home becomes that block becomes that neighborhood becomes that community becomes a region. Now you're the example.
Yep, that's right.
And that's what it boils down to. Now you're the example. And that's something that I've always strived. If you want to talk like a big goal of mine always through life is being the example.
Yeah.
You know, use my network, channel this, you know, to say they're doing it, I'm doing it, now I'm a part of something.
Yep.
You know, and we'll chase out all those trolls and haters, you know, believe it or not, you know, because they'll still not be able to hit those numbers.
You know, it's yeah, exactly, and that's what it is. You know, like I said, there's always going to be haters. They're never going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're truly self-aware and honest with yourself, and you're moving in a direction that truly does make you happy, their opinions don't matter.
Right.
And all you're going to do is prove them wrong. Right?
That's it.
They can hate all day long, and they're going to continue to hate because you are successful, and not money, not jobs, not anything other than you can just tell. Like, I meet people, and within 30 seconds, I can tell they are fully happy with life.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what they've got, what they're doing. They're just inside, right?
Absolutely.
You can just tell. It's in their eyes. It's in their expression. You can just tell. And that's a very powerful thing. You can't push somebody off of that.
No.
Once they've got it, they've got it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and it becomes contagious, you know, and you just can't break through it. And so
powerful.
It just brings off this whole aura of positivity, and it becomes contagious.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know, it's not a matter of, you know, how you're recognized right now, but the biggest game, and I think that the biggest factor is that people worry about how they're going to be remembered. You know,
legacy.
And, you know, so forget how you're recognized or whatever.
Yep.
Concentrate on how you're going to be remembered.
The
rest of it falls in line. And I think that if people change their perspective and really focus on what's important, the rest of it comes very rudimentary and easy.
Yeah.
And then they can't explain it, but it's happening, but it doesn't matter because they feel good and they're spreading it. And try it one time, America, world,
one time,
Puget Sound, one time, you know, but try it and expect nothing in return.
Yeah.
You know,
hold on, because you just hit a big nail on the head right there. There are so many people who are going to try it once, say it failed, and then they're going to be like, well, that didn't work, I'm moving on to something else. Wow. Nail on the head right there.
Well, the excuses will travel into the fear will travel into excuses, and the excuses will prevent them from doing it.
Do something without the expectation of return. I cannot hit that enough, man. That's you just made the biggest point right there.
Yeah, it's huge.
Man. Well, you've got big projects going on, man. I'm really excited for you. I'm excited to see what comes from the job world, you know, following a lot of the projects that you're doing right now. I have no doubt that anything that you put your ideologies to and your mindset and your resources is going to fly. And I've already seen it, right?
Thank you.
And I think we've only seen it on a small scale. I think people are just learning what Steve Lynch can do.
Yeah.
And I think if we let Steve Lynch out of this cage like a wild animal, we're going to really see what he's capable of. And I think everybody's going to be. Thank you. I think you're going to make big impact.
Like I said, years of silence has led me to really understanding, and now we've hit the play button. Yep.
Well, keep impacting the Puget Sound, man. We all appreciate it, and I'm excited to see it grow well beyond the Puget Sound. I think your aspirations, your goals have implications that are way beyond this area, but I know every day that you wake up and come to work, you're focused on how do we impact this area, and that's a huge thing.
Absolutely. It's going to be a hell of a ride, and thank you. You're going to come with me.
Thanks,
man.
Man.
It's going to be great.
Yep. Well, keep on hustling, man. We look forward to having you back in a year or two and being able to do a follow-up episode and see what kind of big things you've been up to.
It'd be great.
So, all right, man. Have a kick-ass day, and Puget Sound Underground, we'll see you on the next episode. See you next time. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching this week's episode. We hope you really enjoyed it. If you love the people and stories of the Puget Sound, please support this podcast by reviewing us and rating us on Apple Podcasts. Stay tuned next week as we continue to curate the underground.